and good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time you're watching this particular AI Yai update. Again, this is Jacob coming to you for what is your last week in the program. Can you believe that? That's crazy. So first, I want to take a moment and make sure that you are all okay. I know that right now, especially for those of us that were impacted by Beryl, life is a little crazy and chaotic. What I will say there is take your time, take care of you first, and then come back and finish up here. We're not going to take away your birthday for being late on getting activities submitted or anything of that nature. So I want you to take care of you first and your loved ones so that you can safely do what you need to do after as it relates to this program. That being said, I've got to tell you, had some really good critical thinking AI design activities. I especially liked when I saw the side-by-sides of what the activity was and then how you were layering it in. We had folks just layering in different tools, different ways about thinking about it, and then people getting into some real metacognition about using AI with their students. And so I thought that was great, that having the students think about the ways that they're thinking as it relates to AI. So kudos to y'all. Some good activities were submitted. So what's next for this next week? Well, we've got the AI tools for students, and this is an important module for a number of reasons, right? It's going to give you access to some other tools, whether they be research-based tools or activity-based tools, creation-based tools in AI that may or may not be useful for you in your disciplines. Then we have you actually go through a prompt progression activity. As I've reiterated a couple times, I think, in this cohort, using generative AI as a conversation in many cases, your first pass at whatever you're trying to do doesn't work oftentimes. And it takes getting it down and refining what you want and having that conversation to make it get to where you need it to be. So we're giving you an example of a prompt progression activity that you might have your students do. And again, the reason we do this is because many of your students might have to get in touch with AI as far as generative AI specifically as it relates to their workplace. So being familiar with the tools is going to help them and serve them well as they move into the workforce. And for some of you that may not be as important in terms of what you're trying to do, but I do think it's a great opportunity for us as we've gotten that guidance from the system to start to at least make our kids aware, prepare our students for what's coming in the workforce. Anyway, that being said, that's this week. That's our last week. Our last week together. It's so sad. But anyway, so in this particular unit, you're going to go through like you have. You'll hit the intro. You'll check out the an important module in here called Setting Guidelines for Student Use for AI. And then you'll have a lesson on writing effective AI prompts, which is important. You'll go through the activity, and then we'll go straight into those tools that we think are valuable for you to have as resources or maybe even leverage in your courses. Your last two activities in the entire program, which are all due Sunday, by the way, are the share what you've learned. It's kind of like a show and tell discussion where you can kind of show some of the work that you've done with the tools or where you plan to implement your courses. And then the post-assessment survey. I'd like you to kind of take a step back, think about the first pre-assessment survey that you did, and with a new eye, if you will, or leaning on to some of the stuff you might have picked up in the program, go ahead and fill out that post-assessment survey. I bet that for some of these things, you might even be like, oh, okay, I kind of moved the lever to the right a little. So that being said, we are so excited about everyone's participation in this program. We really appreciate it. We really appreciate the thought, the energy, and the time you put into making this program a success for you. And so that's cool. So before you go, let's talk about a couple things. So I've given you some show and tell on different types of things. So I'm going to go in here under ethical considerations for AI. And I'm going to go pretend that I'm going to add a quiz to this particular module. And so I'm going to go and create in module 2 a test or quiz. And I'm going to go and I will call it ethical considerations in generative AI, right? Now, is what we'll call this particular test, right? So I would normally try to write some questions for this test. Now I'm going to show you how you can add those questions in multiple different ways. So I'm going to come to my plus button and I'm going to choose auto generate questions. Now, before I start, when I do this, it's going to pull it from titles, right? It's going to pull titles from the title of my course. It'll pull titles from different things, so I can actually type that same thing in here. The words that I want for these questions, right? So remember, I have 40,000 characters that I can leverage in this box, but already it's pulling it from the title of the quiz. I already have some options here, right? I have a matching question. I've got a multiple choice question. I've got down here an essay question, and then another multiple choice question that it pulls from. However, I can pull this from directly from a document too. So I could actually come to my course, and how I got there was, first of all, I could choose select course items. I could choose, when I do the questions, I kind of bird walk there for a second. I can choose to do a random selection, essay, fill in the blank matching, multiple choice, and true false. I can choose the complexity and the number of questions. Right now, you're limited to a max of 10 questions. That number may increase as the tool improves, but that's where you are. But, so if I hit select course items, and then go to content, and ethical considerations in AI, and then maybe I do, I select some things to pull it from, right? And then I'll just choose select. And then I will hit, say it has them selected, then I'll hit generate. And it will pull text from those documents to then create those questions. So what is helpful about that is that by default, it's kind of pulling context from the course, from the internet as well, but when I choose the documents that I want it to pull from, I'm pulling from my own content. I'm saying these are the documents I want you to draw your questions from, right? And that is a nice thing that you can do. Again, I chose to inspire me. I chose the level of complexity. I could tamp that down, which would give me some more options probably in the different types of questions, and then the number of questions as well. So it's going to pull from those two documents, and it's going to throw them here on the screen for me to decide whether I would like to use them or maybe not, which is kind of nice, right? Being able to pull the stuff from my own content makes me feel a little bit better about what I'm using, right? So so here we have, what type of bias occurs when an AI model places excessive reliance on the initial information. How can educators prevent misuse of AI? The same thing, so it's pulling directly from those documents right in there. So I think that's pretty cool, right? Pretty neat. Okay, so that's one way to add questions using just the add new questions to the test. There's another way that I think is pretty nice. So I'm gonna close this and discard and close, and I'm actually gonna come back here and delete this test because it's in your course and you don't need to have an extra graded item show up in your course. Now I'm going to show you how I can do the same thing with an ultra document. So just by clicking on ethical issues in generative AI, it will throw in a bunch of text in here that I can pull from. Now down at the bottom of the screen in that ultra document, I have this little link that's called auto generate question bank. I click that button and it will say, okay, Jacob, how many questions do you want? What kind of complexity do you want? I can make them less complex, and I can hit generate. And it will literally create a question bank from which I can draw questions from in my tests, right? So, oh my gosh, imagine the time I've spent pulling that data before, right? It might take some time. So again, and this is a bank that if I choose to add questions to bank, I'm going to go through and hit my questions, right? I'm going to go 8. Oh, it only did 8. That's okay. The amount of stuff you have in your test, the complexity and other things will determine in your document, will determine how long those questions be. When I want to add them to a bank, I can just choose add 8 questions to bank. and it will tell me once it's done, oh, Jacob, your question bank has been created. So I can go to the bank by clicking that link, or I can come here and scroll to Manage Banks, right? And there you will see the different banks that I've generated, right? So you can see here where I've started. I probably want to go to the most recent one, so I'll go to the where is it? Ethical considerations 710 right here. Ethical issues in generative AI. It's right there. It's got 8 questions. I can delete it. I can go check it out and decide if I want to edit any of that text. I can do that. Get in here and edit that. I can change, all the things that I would normally change in any kind of place like that. Then I would just reuse questions in my normal tests. So it's kind of a neat tool that will allow me to do that. And I can choose to delete it later. But at each level of this, at each level of adding a test or adding questions to your test or adding a pool or question bank, I am in charge. I choose which questions I want to add and which questions I don't. I am the arbiter of what happens in my course. And I just want to reiterate that for you so you know that you are always in control. So I hope you found this helpful. I hope you found that you might find ways to make your life a little bit more efficient by creating questions based upon your own subject matter, and that kind of a thing. Again, we want to thank you for taking part in this program. We always learn a bunch from you all, especially as it relates to specific uses of those tools in your own disciplines. And it's just amazing to see some of those light bulbs turn on, or some of you that came in here as experts already, and we're learning from you as you're talking about it. So anyway, should you have any questions for us, feel free to reach out. Otherwise, thank you so much, and thank you for listening to another wonderful AI update. I hope that you are well, and I hope that you are safe and dry after barrel, and we wish you the best.